Texas. Today, I am here to talk about my breast cancer journey. I was diagnosed at the age of 29 in 2006. So I'm celebrating 16 years this year, and I'm excited to share my story in hopes that I can encourage someone else. I am an author. I have a story that's being published in February. It's about surviving the storms of life.
Welcome to Just One Question with your host, Lion Flood. This podcast is brought to you by The Minority Report, where our goal is to inspire, educate, and empower you with cultural knowledge. We'll also have conversations dealing with social justice, mental health, and the all-around truth. So if you're bold enough to hear the truth, then you're listening to the right podcast. Let's find out what that one question is with your host, Lion Flood.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Just One Question. You know how it's done. We come to you with nothing but positivity, the truth, and inspiration. We have a special guest with us today, ladies and gentlemen. But before we jump into that, I want to just put a little, um, I guess, warning out that this topic could possibly have some trigger effects. So if you feel as though this is something that might trigger you, we're talking about breast cancer awareness as it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Give you a few moments just to gather yourself or maybe turn the station off or something like that. But without any further ado, let's welcome all LaTanya Michelle. Yay! So
Thank
LaTanya,
you.
we know from your bio that's inside the show notes and everything, you're an author, speaker, survivor, motivational speaker, all of that. But how about you tell the listeners a little bit about you? I love doing that because everyone can read what is written, but sometimes hearing it from that person is the best way to go. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. I'm LaTanya Michelle. I am originally from Texas. I'm a native Texan. I reside just outside of Austin, Texas. Today, I am here to talk about my breast cancer journey. I was diagnosed at the age of 29 in 2006. So I'm celebrating 16 years this year, and I'm excited to share my story in hopes that I can encourage someone else. I am an author. I have a story that's being published in February. It's about surviving the storms of life.
So I think that is one of the key things I want to jump into that you just mentioned, right? So when you talk about how in the time frame in where you got detected, I'm sure the answer is yes. But can you kind of talk about how maybe early detection could be a real key for someone out there? Because I
Yes.
know sometimes when I hear people speaking and talking about a diagnosis of any kind, right? Fear jumps in and we're afraid to find out that we have something. But then if we're afraid, that same something could hurt us down the line. So
Yes.
what are your thoughts on early detection?
Early detection, yes, early detection is key. As it relates to my story, I will admit felt my lump myself. I started feeling it in August of 2006. I kept putting it out of my mind, thinking it was hormonal changes and that it would eventually go away. And I did that through August and September of 2006. In September, I bought my house and everything that goes along with buying a house. So I was able to put it out my mind. Then in October, it was still there, and I said, okay, this is something that may need to be looked at. And one of the things that the stats show is that when you detect cancer early, that your survival rates are 98%. That's better odds than you're going to get in anything else. And so that's one of the most important things is that early detection is key. Knowing your family history, knowing the family history of anybody who may have had cancer in your family, that is one of those things that helps with early detection. And also that fear part, being able to put away that notion of fear.
Now, you just said something that for me, it really hit and resonated because I am a big family man, right? And I can only imagine like you said, family members are dealing with this as well.
Mhm.
And if any of the listeners out there who have dealt with it, that might be going through it, how is family important for them to know that I got a resource, I got support? That's got to play a big part of it, right?
Yes. One thing that I just thought about is how, especially in the Black community, we tend to sweep things under the rug, and we don't always tell what's going on within the family. So there could be some family members that don't even know that a family member is going through, but that is so detrimental to the future generations that need to know everything for to be able to equip themselves with being able to be on the lookout for things that may lead to cancer. Um, in the support piece, it's so important. I myself, when I told my mother that I had been diagnosed with breast cancer, I had not told her anything else. I had not told her about the doctor's appointments that were leading up to it because I I was scared of my mother, so I didn't
Yes.
want her to, I didn't want, and I didn't want to worry her. But your family can be your biggest support, your family and your friends, because you're going to need support on a journey like that. And it was so many people who reached out to me and said, what can I do for you, and what do you need? And it was
Mm.
things. There were days that I couldn't prepare a meal for myself. There were times that I needed help with cleaning my house, and I tell you, I had just bought my house. My little flowers outside were dying, and I had friends that came through and replanted the flowers for me and everything. So it's just those little bitty things of support that you for a strong person like me would not have needed any other time.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we don't really take into account, like you said, of how strong family can be. But something you hit on, and that's one of the reasons why when my friends started asking me, say, "Hey, you're doing this podcast thing? What's going on?" As I said, I want to really bring knowledge and resources and voices to the underrepresented, to minorities who don't feel that they have an option, or one, don't know that they have an option. Because I often say we aren't given manuals for life, right? we don't
No.
we don't get injured or get something and like, well, here's step one, here's step two.
Hmm.
So if someone
Hmm.
hears your story, if there's one person listening out there and they say, wait, that sounds like something I went through, or maybe I should check, that's why I do it. And
Yes.
within your journey, talk about your book a little bit. Talk about some of the things that, without giving too much away, because we still want people to go get it, right? So, what are some key points in there that you brought up? Because I know you talked about just now how you informed your mom about it, and how was that for you, and what was that journey like?
It was. I remember calling my mother, and I said, so you know what, let me go back. So the road to the diagnosis, because one of the biggest key things that I would like for anybody that hears this is you have to be your own advocate. You have to be your own advocate. I was 29 when I was diagnosed. When I felt the lump, I called my doctor's office and I said, well, I called the clinic and I said, I need to schedule a mammogram. And they looked up my records. They said, how old are you? I said, I'm 29. And they said, oh, we don't do mammograms on 29-year-olds. And I said, okay, well, I'm feeling something. So I need someone to do something. She said, well, you have to be referred by your doctor. So I went to my doctor, very trusted doctor, and I said, hey, I'm feeling this lump. I showed her where I was feeling, and she was like, LaTanya, I don't think this is anything to be concerned about. And I said, okay. For a moment, I sat there, and then I said, I guess she could see the look on my face. And she said, but I'll send you for an ultrasound if you want me to. I said, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Let's just make sure. And she did, and it ended up being cancer. So I have to say, I was very trusting of this doctor. And some people, it's already a big step to say, let me make this call, and to almost have two exes from the people who said we don't do mammograms on 29-year-olds, and then my very trusted doctor that said I don't think this is anything to be concerned about. But I knew that there was something wrong in my body, and we have to be our own advocate. So when and going through that time, Like I said, I had not told my mother anything about what was going on. So the day I called her the day after. I received my diagnosis on November the 10th, 2006. So I called her the next day after I had went and visited with the surgeon, and he gave me what my options were going to be. So I said to my mother, I don't have good news, which is the same thing that the radiologist had said to me the day before. And I said, I have cancer. And she said, "What? Black mama. What?" She said, "What are you what have you been doing down there? What's going on?" And I told her, I have cancer. And she said, "What kind of cancer?" I said, "Breast cancer." And she said, "Well, I'm not even worried about that because I know the God that I serve." And then she went on and on about me not telling her what had been going on. And so to make a funny, well, not a funny, but I said, and Gerald Levert died today because I needed the focus to be taken off of me. But my mother was definitely one of my biggest supporters.
It is so interesting when you kind of go into that because you give that little funny bit of, and for all of listeners who out there who are African American or black, they understand when mama or big mama give you that look, they don't really got to talk to you, right? That's inherent. You know what's meant.
Yes,
And so for her to kind of come and open up about that and you needing that little joking matter, it must have been a moment where it was like, wow, this is now starting to settle in.
yes,
Because you hear sometimes when people hear news or they get news, it's almost like the world blanks out. You
yeah,
stop hearing things. You don't.
yes,
You're like, I don't. My brain doesn't know how to comprehend this. And through this journey of yours, if someone out there is listening and they're going through something similar or maybe something in the future, what's a difficult part that you kind of had to overcome? What moments were there in your life where you're like, I got to get ready. I got to put on the suit, the battle. I got to be woman king right now. What are some of those moments
yes.
for you?
You know, I talk about telling my mother that I was diagnosed. And I went through this period of time that I realized 5 years after my diagnosis, I said to myself, did I have cancer? Because I didn't get sick. And I know my story isn't everybody's story. And I don't say that to brag or boast, but I didn't get sick during chemo. And I was so thankful for that. But I got to around 5 years and I said, did I have cancer? Because I didn't get sick. My hair fell out, it grew back. So I said, you know what, LaTanya, you need to be a better survivor. And in that, it means that you need to go out and educate your community. And that's what I did. I established these worship in pink services here in Austin because I felt like the easiest way to get to the Black community was going to church. It was getting out to the churches and talking and telling the goodness about how God had healed me from this disease. And then in 2011, 2000, I'm sorry, yeah, 2011, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. And her breast cancer was at the aggressive type. It was triple negative. And triple negative breast cancer is the one that they don't know a lot about. They don't know where it comes from. And it's one of the hardest that there is to treat. My mother subsequently died from breast cancer on October 14th, 2014. Today, October 10th, is actually the last day that I saw her alive in 2014. And so it was hard losing my mother to breast cancer when I was what I consider an October celebrity here in Austin. It was hard to keep going around and talking about this and trying to encourage people because I'm like, how can I encourage somebody when it took my mama? And then a few short months after my mother passed away, one of my very best friends, she passed away from the same type of cancer that my mother had. So it was it for a period of time. And I will tell you, this is one of my very first times since I've decided to talk about this again, since I have been encouraged to talk about this again. I think this is the first time that I'm publicly talking about breast cancer since my mother and my friend passed away in 2014, 2015. So, you know.
It's taking a strength in you, and I
Yes.
appreciate it and I love it. And that's one of the things that I really say sometimes is, hey, if we're dealing with something, we have, I don't want to say an obligation, but we have a right, we have a passage to give
Hmm.
that to help someone else out. And it's
Yes.
kind of what you going back to what you were saying about the doctors, right? We already know that a lot of the African community does not trust
Hmm.
in that medical system. And for you to hear your doctor say no, but you kept fighting, right? You're your only advocate. And for that, I like to tell everyone out there, like the old I forget what the show was, but they would go and they would tell people, it is like, that is message. That's what, Damon Wayans, they used to do that. Oh, what was the show called? They go,
You got me
message.
on that one.
Oh man, I have to think about it again. It'll come to me before the end of the show. But you got to be your own advocate, and
Mhm.
you know your own body. Uh,
Yes.
you know, they would say that African Americans, Black people, our skins were tougher, and so they wouldn't give us medicine. So I
Hmm.
appreciate you for opening up and talking about that and saying that. And within that advice, what type of advice would you give someone who is about to go through this journey, about to suit up and say, hey, I'm a warrior, I got to deal with this? Any kind of positive thing you want to throw out
Yes.
there to them?
To my community, when I started going around and talking about breast cancer, inevitably I would have someone to come to me and say, I'm scared to go to the doctor. I've been feeling this and I'm scared. And candidly, I would say, well, how scared do you think you'll be when you're taking your last breath, because you could have done something to prevent this? And I don't say, I try not to be angry about it, but the cancer treatment of today is not the same cancer treatment of the past. Um, there have been so many advancements that have been made, and because we are a religious people, I say, you know what? People say, I don't want that chemo. That chemo is poison, and I'm just going to trust God that He's going to make me whole. And I would tell people, okay, so God gave the doctor the knowledge. So if we're going to trust God, we're going to trust that God gave the doctor the knowledge to make the medication, and that He made that medication that's going to treat my illness. And so that's one of the things, being trustful. And if you don't have a doctor that you trust, the very first oncologist that I met with, I didn't trust him. I was 29. And when I went in there, he told me his bedside manner just wasn't good. And I said, you know what? I don't want him as a doctor, because I'm not asking for a best friend, but I need to know that I have a doctor that has my best interest at heart. And I changed doctors, and the doctor that I changed to, she was absolutely amazing. I was her youngest client at that time. And but she told me, if you do what I tell you to do, we're going to get through this. And she was so worried about me, because at that time I lived by myself. And she gave me her personal phone number. She said, you know what, if you get sick, I want you to call me. And I never, thankfully, I never had to use it. But I you have to find a doctor that you trust in everything. And that's something that I stand on. I need to be able to trust the person that's going to be providing my care, but I also need to take it a step further and trust the things that they're telling me that they're going to use to treat my condition.
Yeah, it. I mean, you're just like punching me in the feelers right there, because I hear that often. I whether it's with breast cancer awareness or with any other thing, right? It's like I'm just gonna trust in whatever. But like you said, if they were given the medicine, they were given the
Yes.
information to be able to the technology to make the machines to help, trust
Hmm.
that those things can help. Sure, there are
Yes.
some situations where it might not be right for you, and like you said, they will switch to someone, but you have to be open to like understanding it. For
Yes.
for anyone who wants to reach out to you and say, hey, you know what, I would love to bring her in to speak to maybe my congregation,
Hmm.
to speak to some businesses or anything, how can people reach out to you and find you?
I've tried to make it very simple. So on Facebook and on Instagram, it's LaTanya Speaks. LaTanya Speaks on Facebook and Instagram. And also, if someone wants to reach out to me on LinkedIn, I can be found at it's LaTanya Tatum Logan. feel free to reach out to me. My email address is LaTanya. Keep in mind, my name is spelled with an A, LATANYA, at LaTanyaMichelle.com.
Yes, and we can always find those in the show notes for all of our listeners out there. Our viewers were able to see some of these on the screen, but we'll make sure we put all those
Yes.
emails and everything in there. Is there anything you think that I forgot? Any last parting words you want to say to anyone who's listening right now? For that one person sitting inside their vehicle right now that's in a supermarket parking lot who just maybe got the call from a doctor or something to say, come in, or anything, what are some parting words you want to say to people who are listening to this?
I want people to surround yourselves with positivity. It's a journey. The journey through any type of cancer, it is the biggest journey that you will probably ever have in your life. So surround yourself with people who are in your corner. Your co-survivors are going to be those people that are going to help you to get through those times. If you're uninsured or if you are underinsured, there are resources for you. You just have to seek out those resources. If you have a Komen affiliate or a American Cancer Society in your city or your locale, reach out to them. The resources are vast for those people who are uninsured or underinsured. And one thing that I forgot to mention, um, men, you are not exempt. While 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer, 1 in 100 men will also be diagnosed with breast cancer. So, breast cancer is a disease that does not discriminate.
There you go. Are we getting another one? Let me see. Message. There you go.
Message.
In Living Color. That was the name of the
Ah,
show. In Living Color. They would do
okay.
that. They would say something socially, and then they go, message. Yes. So I absolutely love this, and this is the main reason why I love doing this, because just that little piece that you spoke about just now when you talked about the resources, right? Because sometimes we may get so overwhelmed we think we don't have help. I don't know how to get help. There's no way for me out of this. So then they kind of stop, right? But you
Yes.
just told someone, hey, go to this center, go reach out to that. And I absolutely love that. So hold on for me for 1 minute, Latanya. I'm going to do some housekeeping here and clean up, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk with you, okay?
Okay.
Just one moment. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Just One Question. I told you guys this podcast is about dedication and inspiring and educating for the underrepresented minority communities out there who feel that they just don't know where to go. I sincerely appreciate you all for tuning in to another episode. I can't wait to have you come back for the next one. And like I always tell you, though, make sure you live while you're still alive.
Thank you for listening to Just One Question. I know you enjoyed the show because you made it this far. If you want to hear more, subscribe, share, and don't forget to give us a 5-star review. Now, what's your one question?